it's Joey, and today we're watching Young Royal Season 3, Episode 5. This is the penultimate episode of the show, and I'm very stressed for my children going into this. A reminder that you can find the unedited version of these reactions on my Patreon, and let's go. He's imagining his brother, not the person he thought. I'm sorry, sweetheart. His brother's dead, he can't even confront him about it. He can't even just stop and talk to him, yell at him. It's so awful when you love someone and they're gone and then you change your opinion of them because it feels wrong to be angry at them because they're dead, but you have every right to be angry at them. Also, someone did point out that Wilhelm's parents will see him on his birthday, they just won't be there for the charity thing because that would be really, really hard. The thing is, you don't want to share that your brother, you don't want everyone else's image of your brother to go as well. It's hard to cope with the ramifications of something like this. These are very awful. He did not think it was the least bit funny, you moron. He's trying. I'm just so happy he's getting to try. And it's so heartbreaking, isn't it? That anytime he seems in a good mood, she's immediately going to be concerned that he's high or drunk. And of course she's going to be concerned. It's her lived experience with him. If he isn't, it's heartbreaking. And if it is, it's heartbreaking. Be a parent to your kid, please. Oh, sweetheart. He wasn't, and you know it now. Thing is, no one is perfect. Parents are gonna look at their kids if they love them and they're gonna think they're perfect, but like, no one is actually perfect. People can be brilliant and wonderful and almost perfect, and parents are gonna want to look at their kids and say they're perfect, but you know the kind of strain and pressure Wilhelm is under. You know how much he is comparing himself to his brother. You know that even like when you were sat there, Dad, eating the dinner, saying fuck all, when the mum was like, oh, it's just everyone's going to compare you to Eric now, and then Wilhelm said, well, like, that's new, that's always been the case. And now you're like, yes, Eric was perfect. You shame on me, son. Like, obviously he's not saying the second part, but obviously Wilhelm's gonna hear the second part. Obviously he's gonna hear that I'm not living up to Eric part. And now he knows that Eric wasn't perfect, and it's kind of like, how do you say, Dad, I found out something Eric did that was really awful, and I don't know how to process that. You should be able to talk about that with someone, with your parents, but then you don't want to ruin their image of Eric, or you don't, well, they believe me, and I just want to give him a hug. He needs to talk to the counselor. Because he wasn't perfect. He was human, and he hid his weaknesses. Like everyone, and his darknesses. Yeah. Oh my god. Your son is clearly upset. He just said I heard something about my dead brother. And you're hanging, oh fuck you. He's clearly upset. God, their child is the last of their priorities. Like, genuinely, Wilhelm is not a priority for them. He doesn't matter to them beyond needing an heir. I'm so sorry. Some people shouldn't be parents. You can talk to him about it. Though I suppose in a way he feels like if he tells his parents, they'll probably have a like, he maybe hopes that they'll explain it away, or that they'll be able to say, oh yes, Eric was under some pressures, or he did confide to me about that and he felt terribly, or I don't know, you probably deep down are hoping that they'll be able to frame it in a way where you don't have to lose the image you had of your brother. But then you've got, thinking about if you tell Simon, he will be there for you, but he'll probably be like, wow, your brother was a dick, will be what he'll be thinking, and you don't want to change people's opinion of him, and just talk to him though, sweetie, okay? You can. Suffering in silence isn't the answer. Go get asked for an appointment with the therapist.
Jag vet inte ens själv vad jag tänker om det. Jag behöver verkligen inte att du dömer honom också. Jag har inte sagt något. Men jag ser vad du tänker.
Wilhelm, don't take this out on
Simon. Att han är homofob, att han inte stod upp för de svaga. Att han inte hade tyckt om att jag var med dig, eller att han hade tyckt om vem jag är.
That's exactly what he's thinking. This is so awful because that's exactly what he's thinking about his brother. He's thinking my brother was a homophobe and he would have hated me. He wouldn't have supported me. All this time I've been thinking like, well, if only Eric was here, everything would be better. But maybe if Eric was here, it would be worse. And I agree with Simon. I don't think that's necessarily true. I also think he's getting angry at Simon because it's safer than, I mean, it's not safer, but he can't be angry at Eric. It's like there is no way to put that anger because there's no one to be angry at. He's dead. Like, it's easier to be angry at Simon and to think you're judging him, and it's because he's judging him, and then he feels guilty for judging his brother because his brother's dead and his brother was amazing and his brother was always there for him, and how dare I judge him? But of course you have to judge him because of what he did, and then he's thinking Eric would hate me. And I also agree with Simon that Eric isn't necessarily, what he did was homophobic, but I don't think that means he was a homophobe. I think it was the initiation. It was probably done to Eric in his turn, and you get that weird cycle of like, probably when it happens to you, you're like, we're going to change it, and then everyone up until this group of third years didn't change a thing. People, it's kind of, they get some weird pleasure out of watching other people suffer the way they did or something. I don't think it means Eric was homophobic, but I completely understand why Wilhelm's brain is going there, and it breaks my heart. Like, I do think in the long run it could be good for him to realize his brother wasn't perfect so he can stop holding himself to such impossible standards that no one could meet. But it's just the worst possible way for that to happen. And he's taking it out on Simon, who, yeah, anyone who hears that Eric took part, I judge everyone that took part in it. I wouldn't say I think it means they're an evil person, but what they did was evil.
Drogs in i det där om alla andra gjorde det och tyckte att det var ett normalt beteende.
Yeah.
Han kanske föll för grupptryck.
Exactly. Thank you, Simon.
Lärt mig med hela den här situationen.
Thank you for talking to him and giving him reason.
Också kan fucka upp. Vänjade vid tanken av att Erik kanske inte var helt perfekt. Men vänta, alltså vad menar du? Vadå? Alltså du kan inte jämföra Erik och Sara. Du har inte rätt att göra det.
Will.
Det gjorde jag inte. Jo, det gjorde.
The situations are different, but the point he's making is accurate. But he just so much wants to hold on to this idea that Eric was perfect. But what Simon just said is true, and it's right. Like, the situations are very different, and you can't compare them exactly, but you can compare the concept of older siblings that you think are great doing things that hurt you, or you find out about that hurt you, like what Sarah did directly hurt Simon, and Wilhelm finding out about it has hurt him. Again, you can't be angry at Eric, so don't take it out on Simon just because he's there. What he's saying is actually lovely. I was prepared to defend Simon if he had been like, whoa, your brother was a dick. Again, I don't actually think at any point I thought he would say that, but if he was unable to hide his facial expression or something, you know, like if he kind of gave away like that he genuinely was thinking, whoa, like, Eric really was a piece of shit. Wow, thank God we don't have to look up to him anymore. You know, if he kind of had that sort of internal reaction, and maybe he is thinking some of that. But the fact that he immediately tried to calm Wilhelm down, tried to reassure him that it didn't mean he didn't know his brother, that maybe it was just peer pressure for all, and like, it's true. Like, for all, to be honest, all August said was he was there. So he could have been the one leading it on. He could have come up with the idea. Like, it could have been the first time it was ever done. Or he could have been secretly, inwardly hating it and wishing he could do anything else, but feeling like he had to be perfect and he had to fit in with everybody. And, you know, we don't know is the answer. We weren't there. And even, like, the people surviving who were there, unless they're, like, Eric's friends, his peer group, they're not going to even know if Eric, like, no one's going to know what was in Eric's head when it was happening. Even if he was going, ha ha ha, that's so funny, he might have been inwardly thinking, I hate myself, I hate myself, I hate myself. We don't know, and we never will know. He could have been the biggest homophobe of them all. We just will never know. So I adore Simon for immediately jumping to, like, well, no, you don't know all those things. Maybe it was peer pressure. Maybe he didn't have a choice. But he wasn't perfect, and that is something we grow up. When you grow up, you learn your parents aren't perfect, and you learn your siblings aren't perfect. And that is definitely easier to do when your sibling is alive and can explain themselves and can grow and learn if they have made mistakes, and you can realize that he regrets it, or you can realize, wow, he doesn't regret it. Wow, I can cut him out of my life. But when he's this person that you've always looked up to and believed always had your back, because he did. Oh. He's just in a whirlwind. It's not you, my love, which doesn't help you in the slightest with what you're feeling. Because everything's a battle. And the one thing they had was that the two of them together were happy. Is he supposed to be taking her to a driving test? He's not doing well with his sobriety, is he?
Du såg hans bra sidor. Simon har liksom inte gjort det.
Sweetheart. Simon was defending Eric. Like, he actually was defending him. He was saying he wasn't perfect. Because nobody is perfect. I adore you, you aren't perfect. I adore Simon, he's not perfect. I adore Felice, she's not perfect. Like, no one is perfect. So it's okay that he wasn't perfect. And it's okay that this has made you doubt him. And it's okay that this has tainted some of your memories of him. It's just so hard for him to accept that concept.
Nu vet jag liksom inte ens om han hade tyckt om mig.
Oh, he loved you so much. He's just so worried his brother was actually homophobic, or he probably was always thinking Eric would have supported me in all of this. I failed my first time. It's totally natural. Oh, Lord. I'm so sorry, my love. All your worst fears about him were true. Sobriety is terrible, but especially when you're the kid of an addict, but sometimes you have to cut yourself off for your own sake and your own safety.
Jag skulle kört dit men jag lovade.
I'm so sorry.
Drack han öl med sina kompisar.
She thought this time it was different. I'm so sorry your dad's putting you through this, sweetheart. Addiction is an illness, but he should have said I'm not in a state to look after you. I'm sorry. It's awful, isn't it? Because even if he liked it, like, he may have just done it with Fleece, but even if he liked having nail polish on, he's not allowed to have it on. Ridiculous. Oh. Most beautiful version of happy birthday ever.
Tack för ditt sms.
You're okay, but it's a mess. And it's not a mess of your own making, and it breaks my heart.
Grattis, kompisen.
What you did. Nothing you've done excuses it. Nothing that happened to excuse it. We picked sports and health. Did he just say, hi Joy, it's a pleasure? Hi Wilhelm, it's a pleasure to meet you too. I'm adopting you and taking you home. You can come with me. It's all fine now. You don't have to be part of the circus anymore. I wasn't expecting to read my name. I don't know if he even said my name. He did! He can come home with me. I'll adopt him. He's big sister.
Kockar tillagat på såna grejer. Varför? Det finns risk för förgiftning.
Kronprinsen, Simon.
I love it so much that, like, obviously, like, it's a very low risk, but at the same time, like, they're just cool with Simon just casually munching down. All the guests are casually able to eat on whatever, or whoever it came from, but not the royals. August, it's the consequences of your own actions here. That would be so weird. His parents love him, but he's not a priority in their life. And that is not how any child should feel with their parents. His dad's old tuxedo, that's sad. His dad's trying. I say that because it's like, I don't give him credit when he tries like 2 days a year. You should be able to if you want to.
Ja, han tog ju både piano och cellolektioner när han var barn. Men han fick ju...
Depression is a cruel beast, but are you gonna try and engage yourself for your son's birthday?
Och så spelade han tvärflöjt och
It's Wilhelm's birthday. Like, I understand that you're grieving Eric, but it's like she can't even see that she has another child in front of her. And I'm not saying you don't feel the pain of one child if you have another child, of course not. But like, take all the solace you can in your living, breathing baby right in front of you and stop talking about how perfect and wonderful Eric was, with the clear implication that Wilhelm isn't as good. And I know she's suffering from depression, and I know that it's not entirely her fault, so I'm not like saying the Queen is evil, stone her, but like she's not a good mother, and I think she was not a good mother even before she got depression. So like that is just a moot point here. It's his birthday. Maybe he doesn't want to constantly talk about his dead brother. Like, if he wants to, he'll bring it up. Maybe let him, like, take as much time to be sad as he wants to on this day. Littering. We're adding littering to the crime list now. There's a bin right there. See? Just go back inside, Sarah. Sarah, go back inside. Well, it definitely shows you the school. It's so sad as well. When you think about how much August idolized this school and his time here, and how utterly miserable he was in his first year. Bullied, hating himself, hating everything. And yet he viewed this school as the pinnacle of everything. Now again, it can explain some of his actions, but at the end of the day, nothing explains what he did to his cousin and Simon. Like, Wilhelm and Simon did nothing to him. It's not even like he could argue it was retaliation of some kind, because they literally had done nothing. Like, Wilhelm had just been like, oh, you're losing your... Like, he'd kind of been a little bit bratty to him, but it wasn't like he'd done anything to deserve that kind of thing. Like, it's just... It makes you feel sorry for him, and I do want this boy to get severe help, but away from here and away from the people he hurt, instead of continually inserting himself in their lives. And she can probably relate to a lot of that. It's probably why they connected. Well, your own choices made you alone, so... Make better choices going forward. Like, I want to give that little boy a big hug. And you deserve a degree of compassion, but what you did was unforgivable. Simon literally forgave you, like, yesterday. That better be a goodbye, like, it can never be a kiss. He wasn't perfect, and that's okay, sweetheart. You're a better person than he was already. And it's okay if you can't see that.
Vadå inte borde vara här? Jag behöver dig här.
Talk to him, because
Det är en vidrig upplevelse. Men absolut, om du tycker att det är så jävla jobbigt så åk du.
I know, sweetheart, okay? But you're kind of icing him out a little bit too. Like, you walked off, you didn't say, oh, Simon, let's have a moment, or I don't know. It is awkward, and when you kind of think, like, am I making things better by being here or worse? Maybe your family just needs to deal with things. But also, like, I need you here isn't necessarily a reason someone else has to stay if it's not good for their mental health as well. I do think in this situation, Simon probably should stay and be with him, but at the same time, like, you have to let him in and talk to him all the way. You can't just be like, I need you here. Like, talk to him about how you're feeling. Let it out, and talk to your parents about how you're feeling. Your dad, at the very least. Like, ask to talk to him in private and unload everything on him. He's coping very well at the moment, it would seem. I just don't feel like this relationship is headed in a healthy direction right now, and it breaks my heart because it really could have done in different circumstances. And of course, this is one of the worst, probably the worst birthday he's ever had, because it's the first birthday since Eric, right? And it shouldn't be this hard. Mum didn't even try and clap.
Och äter upp tårtan och så.
Ja, men då äter vi frukost tillsammans imorgon innan ni behöver åka iväg.
It's his birthday.
Lite jävla tårt.
He has every right to ask her this.
Förlåt, men
He's your child and he's hurting as well. And he just wants his mum and his... But Wilhelm too.
Det är klart, tror att jag är sjukt. Eller, jag vet inte, jag var helt förstörd. Jag var helt förstörd och jag behövde dig.
I know.
Behövt er. Det enda du har brytt dig om, det är hur jag ser ut och hur jag ska vara som kronprins.
He's needed to say this for so long.
Ser ut. Det är det som har spelat någon roll. När jag sen då inte vill ljuga, lämnar du mig helt jävla ensam.
Men Willem, det räcker nu.
Och du!
He has every right to let it out.
Vill skiter i mig. Jag är din enda son, pappa.
Kan du fan jag vill till er, ni är mina fucking föräldrar! Ni ska finnas där för mig!
He has every right to offload to you because you should be there for him. I know that it's a bad time for her, but...
Det är inte så lätt att vara både din mamma och din chef.
Nej, jag märker det, för du är lika jävla kass på båda två!
Yeah.
Slutar du?
Maybe you should never have bothered with the boss part and just been his mother. That's what a kid needs.
Jag vet det.
Yeah, but you're not a parent, either of you. Wilhelm doesn't have parents. He has managers. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, and I'm so proud of you because that was really hard. Was it all said in the most eloquent, respectful way it could have been? No, but... Yeah. Yeah, this is very overwhelming. But I am proud of Wilhelm for getting it off his chest because he's been holding that in for so long. I think since before Eric even died.
Ville,
You needed to let it out. But...
jag tycker det är bra att du är
Me
ärlig
too,
med dina
sweetheart.
föräldrar. Och allt bara skadar dig. Hela den här situationen du är
You're
i.
not hurting him, my love.
Och det skadar mig.
Poor babies, both of them.
Det är bara...
Not this song in the
Det borde inte vara
background.
så svårt. Kanske bara inte går.
Oh, I've been thinking this would come, but today...
Jag kan inte göra det här längre.
If that scene had gone on for much longer, I would have actually cried. So I'm kind of glad the episode ended there because it was building. It was building. I don't have any thoughts right now. Like, I have so many thoughts, but also zero thoughts because my brain is just an overload. And I immediately just want to discuss everything that happened in like the end of the episode, even though so much happened in the beginning of the episode. So I'm going to try and jump backwards. Sarah, we'll start with Sarah. I don't in any way, shape or form hate her. I feel a lot of compassion and sympathy for her. I do think she was a little bit head over heels in love. And again, I think she was head over heels in love with the idea of being one of these rich, privileged kids that everything came easy to, as well as with August. I do think she and August found a genuine connection in the midst of all of it. But I also think the circumstances in which they found that connection were severely fucked up, and therefore it can never be. Also, August isn't someone that I would want to have in my life, given what he did to her brother. But, you know, like, I think if they had somehow managed to spend time together outside and August had never done what he did, I think they could have actually had a very enduring connection. But it's, especially hearing August's letter, but given the situation, how could you do that? And so I feel like, I think her apology to Simon was genuine. I think it always has been. But if that moment with August was anything other than a passing up, than a like, we could never be, like, I'm sad about it, but like, we could never be kind of end things moment, then I'd lose a lot of respect for her. I still think she should have just walked away from him. I don't think she should have spoken to him. Maybe they needed a moment of closure to like end things, but I am disappointed with her for kissing him in general. Now, obviously, the letter was heartbreaking. And I will get on to August in a moment. And hearing that letter would kind of mess you up a little bit, especially when Sarah has felt a lot of those feelings herself in her own life. But it doesn't excuse things. And I feel like, having been through what she's been through with her father, wanting to believe someone has changed, wanting to believe someone means what they say and means their actions of being there for you and being supportive that they show you, only to realise that they don't mean it and they're lying to your face, isn't great for her to then be kissing August after apologising to Simon. So which is why I have to believe it was an ill-judged, like, farewell moment of, like, closure on the whole affair sort of situation. Which will cause problems because Frederica saw it and reported it to police. So, like, it's going to cause problems, but that's what I have to believe it is. Because she was patching things up with Felice. I don't know if they'd ever be besties again, but I feel like they were healing the breach. With Simon as well. And her dad. Now, obviously, addiction is an illness, and it's very important that we don't demonize people who are addicted to substances or whatever, because it is an illness. It is a gene, a brain chemistry. If you consume a whole load of alcohol or whatever and you don't get addicted, you're very, very lucky that you didn't have whatever it was that would trigger that moment. But at the same time, for the people around an addict, there does come a time and a place where if that person is not seeking help, if that person is not looking out for themselves, you have to cut the rope and you have to save yourself. because they're going to drag you down. And I think that's especially true of parents and children. So if your parent is an alcoholic, an addict, it's so unhealthy to grow up. You'll never know who's going to walk through the door, what kind of person you're going to have. I mean, her dad, I was giving him credit and hoping he was being genuine. And I do think a lot of the time he believed he was being genuine himself. Now, maybe he went to the doctor, they gave him some medication, it messed him up. We don't know. But it's just such an unstable place to be as a child. And she so desperately wanted to believe that he was trying, that they were having this second chance and that things could be good again. And I think she was viewing a lot of her own redemption and self-worth in that as well. So it was very heartbreaking to see not only did he not show up, but that he was out drinking. And that definitely casts a different light on the time when he was sleeping, when he didn't come and pick her up. I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one occasion, but when it, like, this time, it was very clear things were not good. And it was heartbreaking to see her. And I know what it's like to have, my parent is not an addict, but to have a parent kind of apologize for things they've done wrong and say all the right things. And when you're with them, they treat you like everything is wonderful and that they're the best parent ever and they love you. And then next minute, they're back to doing what they were doing before. It's a very hard thing to go through, and it was very hard to watch her experiencing that. I just hope she continues to heal and continues to heal the relationship she's breached, and does not start a relationship with August, because that would just be back to circle one. And I don't think she's going to. I think that was a farewell moment, like a it's over now kind of closure, but it could cause her problems in the short term. Then we have August, who they do such a good job in the show, because I do feel compassion for August. There are times when I'm almost like, oh, let me give you a hug, and then I'm like, what you did was unforgivable, and you've since been lashing out at Wilhelm, even though, like, what you did to him was unforgivable. Like, yes, I know that it's easy to forget that the thing that spurred him to do it was Wilhelm being like, he's not even going to be here next year, he's broke, or whatever. But then Wilhelm did then go and say, hey, wanna, like, I know it's been, someone commented that, like, Wilhelm didn't get them to sort out August's finances, but I do feel like it's pretty, like, if you phone up and you say, hey, a member of the royal family is struggling financially, want to help, like, can you look into that? They're obviously going to fix it. They're not going to be like, oh no, we're going to leave him we're going to kick him out of the royal club. Like, but regardless, Wilhelm was like a bratty kid, nothing worse than how August has treated a lot of other people, and August decided to out him and post a sex tape of him. Despite promising he would be there for him after his brother's death. Like, what August did was unforgivable on multiple levels, and that's just to Wilhelm. It was unforgivable on multiple levels to Simon as well. Like, it was just unforgivable. But your heart can still break for everything he's been through with losing his dad, with his mum, instead of grieving with him, helping him heal, holding him close, sent him away to boarding school where he got bullied. Like, that is unbelievably, you can see why he is messed up the way he is. I honestly feel like a kid arriving, having lost a parent, should be forced into counselling. I think, to be honest, at a school, especially a school that can afford it, like this one, every single one of those kids should have one weekly appointment with a counsellor, just to make sure they're not stressed about homework or whatever. And the majority of the appointments can be really nice and casual and just, oh, maths was really hard this week, okay, bye, and like nothing to talk about. But then if the kids do have any need to talk about, they have a relationship with the counsellor going and they can open up to him. But anyway, August needs severe help. His eating disorder has been apparent since season 1 and just been becoming more and more so. Obviously dealing with the need to be perfect with his father's death, and then what happens at initiation would obviously not have helped with his mental health. But it doesn't excuse what he did, and it doesn't excuse the times, like, he is so angry at Wilhelm for not forgiving him, and it's so frustrating. Is a part of his inner logic that he forgave Eric? I don't think he actually forgave Eric. I think he still harbored a lot of anger and resentment, but that he forgave Eric and was best buddies with him, like, when we first met him. And that he's therefore like, well, I forgave them, why can't you forgive me? But the situations, again, were very different with what happened. We don't know whether Eric was the front man or whether Eric was in the back feeling bad about it. Who knows? Obviously, I'm not saying if he was in the back feeling bad about it, he's let off the hook because he didn't stop it. But there's different situations, but both bad. But just because August went through something, it doesn't mean he gets off the hook for what he did. Especially as he's been aggressively, why don't you forgive me? Fuck you about everything and trying to steal the crown. Like, why would you even want the crown, for fuck's sake? It's just so well done, because August is somebody who you feel sympathy for, and you can see that he has suffered, and you can see what has made him this way, but not a single one of those things explains why he did what he did. Because it's not even like he sent the video round to some of his schoolmates, like, lol, look at Wilhelm, he's gay, lol. Which obviously would still be an atrocious, awful thing to do. I'm not saying it wouldn't be, but it wouldn't be quite putting him on blast to the world. And then one of those people leaked it, and he was like, oh, I just thought it was going to be some, like, boys, lads banter. Still would be wrong and atrocious, but he needs to take responsibility for his actions. And, like, a significant part of why he is alone now is because of his choices and his actions. Some of that is because he's been so false this whole time. Like, even when we first met him, before he did anything, he was so, like, Wilhelm used to find him frustrating and irritating because he was quite pick-me energy, I guess, is kind of a term we'd use these days. It was very, like, oh, I'm just so perfect and wonderful. I'm just one of the, like, I'm just so great, and like everyone's so great, and that's so great. It was very insincere a lot of the time, and very try hard a lot of the time, instead of just being himself and he'd figure it all out. One thing that is becoming more and more apparent is that Halerska is a terrible school. It breeds an awful atmosphere where the privileged kids can do whatever the fuck they want, and anyone who is at least a bit different is made to feel awful for that fact, but has to go, yeah, I'm fine with it. Whether it's the guy who was like, when I can't remember his name because I said it once, but when Vincent was like, oh, he doesn't care about these awful, like, racist, racist, classist, sexist things that we've got on this form, right? And the guy was like, yeah, I'm fine with it. And Vincent went, see, he's fine with it. Like, it's a horrible place, and it should be shut down, in my opinion, or at the very least, someone to come in, completely clean house and change everything. But I've kind of lost my train of thought. August is such a brilliant character because he's not a black and white villain. He's not just some pompous rich kid who's out to steal the throne and hurt people. He is complex, but I can't forgive what he did, and for as long as he tries to act like he should be forgiven, I will not support him. And yeah, so I did feel bad for him in this episode, but at the same time, he'll just go off to some elite school, get some good job, and live a perfectly happy life. Like, we'll see where he goes. Then, I don't feel like there was super loads with Felice in this episode beyond just kind of being sort of friendly with Sarah. So then we have Simon and Wilhelm. Now, obviously, this was definitely Wilhelm's worst birthday ever, because not only is it the first birthday without his brother, but his mum is both suffering from depression and isolating him and pulling away from him. Now, again, no, depression is not equal. Depression does not treat everybody the same, but I have experience of a parent going through severe depression, and they were still, like, there for me, and tried to, like, they tried to be like, everything's fine and I'm happy, and I could see that it was not true all the way through, but, like, they tried, because they loved me and they were putting me first. And there were times when I almost wished that they'd been honest, but, you know, like, it was a complex situation, and I was there for them, they were there for me. Like, it was very different to this situation. But that being said, it is possible. The Queen doesn't even seem to try. Like, if she at least tried, and then, like, when the cake first came out, she was like, oh, Wilhelm, this looks great. It's your favourite flavour. Or, I mean, I don't know, that's like, I don't know, it was just kind of like, oh, why don't you make a wish? Let's cut a piece, whatever they do. Like, and then slowly faded. I would give her more credit because at least she tried. The most she did was sing him the song and then hug him when he arrived. And then she just, Eric was perfect. Eric was wonderful. Eric was perfect. Oh yes, Eric was perfect. Sorry, do I have another son? I had forgotten. Like, it just drives me up the wall. And then the father, at least, like, when Wilhelm's present, he tries. He puts in the effort. Like, he was asking Simon questions and being, oh, I haven't tried laser tag, oh. But it was also false, and none of it was getting to the true anything. Wilhelm phoned him to talk about Eric, clearly sounding upset in his voice, and then said, I heard something about him, and you were like, oh, maybe we'll talk at the palace. Maybe he wants to talk to you, that's why he fucking phoned you. So the most telling line of all, I think, was, and it was quite a heartbreaking line from both sides as well, was when the Queen said, it's hard being your mum and your boss. Then just be his mum. He didn't ask to be a prince. He didn't ask for you to be the queen. Like, behind closed doors, you should just be his mum. There are court people who can be the ones saying, Wilhelm, your appointment's at 7, you must get here, you must get that. And you can just be his mum. Maybe you should put your children first and not the idea you have of your own self-importance. But it just, she's like, even in the very first episode of the show, when Eric was alive, Wilhelm was just the spare. Like, if there was no pressure on him beyond being like not getting into fights. Like, it was, I still remember the fact that like he got into the fight and then he was told, oh, you're gonna go make an announcement that you're sorry and you're going to boarding school. Your parents taught, and like he read their practice announcement and it was like, I've discussed this with my parents. And he was like, but I haven't discussed this with my parents. And they were like, yeah, so they don't even bother to, like, I genuinely feel like he got into a fight and his parents didn't even get cross with him for getting into the fight. They didn't ask him if he was okay. They didn't ask what had led up to it. They didn't say, how could you get into a fight? Violence is never the answer. They just were like, do better, don't bite your nails, go and be on the camera. Okay, go to boarding school now. Like, there was no parenting there. No wonder he was getting into fights. I mean, whether it was many or one, I don't know. I think it was just the one incident of the fight, but no wonder he was spiraling. No wonder Eric gave into peer pressure or led the peer pressure and thought, was trying to seek togetherness and peerness somewhere else, whether that was by creating this awful environment himself or in order to feel validated, or whether it was about him being into the peer pressure. No wonder the cycle is perpetuated when you perpetuate it. So it broke my heart for Wilhelm all episode, because this was always going to be the worst birthday ever, and then because his brother was dead, and now he's facing the fact that Eric wasn't perfect. And I think it was so believable in this episode, in that like Wilhelm was so clearly going between, my brother was perfect, I can't believe this is true, like I do believe it, but also, but he was perfect, that's still true, to my brother would have hated me, he wouldn't love me, he wouldn't have supported me. And I feel like anytime, like if Simon had said in that first scene in the music room, Eric would have hated you, he was a homophobe, forget him, move on, Wilhelm would have obviously been rightfully angry. And when Simon said, well, no, I don't think that's true, I don't think we know if it was peer pressure or what, but just like, it's hard to learn your siblings aren't perfect, I know that from experience, but it's okay to learn he wasn't perfect. Doesn't mean he didn't love you, was kind of the vibe Simon was saying. And he was like, how dare you say that about my brother? Like, he didn't know the good parts of him. Like, it's just, it was so clear that he wasn't ready to hear anything bad. And like, again, with my reactions, I find like I often like to relate things to my own life, and I'm not trying to be egotistical, but my closest thing would be with my disappointing parent. There was a real time right when they first revealed their true colors where like sometimes my friends would like slag them off to like make me feel better, and like I could slag them off, but there would be still with that part of me that would be like, no, don't say that, I love my parent, what are you doing, they're great. And then my brain would be like, actually everything they just said is accurate. So it is hard to go from that person is amazing and I love them and I idolize them and I would never hear anything bad against them without standing up to them, to then accept that they are in fact flawed. And it's made even worse for Wilhelm because Eric is dead. He can't phone Eric and say, what the fuck, I've just heard that you did that awful initiation, what? And then have Eric would hopefully not deny it and hopefully would say, oh, I'm regretting it, I can't believe I did that, or whatever. Or he would reveal his true colours and say, yeah, it was funny, lol. Like, whatever he were to do, it would help Wilhelm process, but instead he doesn't know. And his parents are idolising this person, and he hears this information that they don't know about his perfect brother, which, again, no one knew the real Eric, but Eric, he was probably extremely isolated and alone too. And if he'd lived, I think he and Wilhelm could have grown closer as they got older, as he was able to share some of what he was going through with Wilhelm when Wilhelm wasn't his baby brother that needed protecting because he was little. So it was really hard to watch all of this. And I was incredibly proud of Wilhelm for being honest with his parents, because he's needed to do it for a long time. And anytime he's remotely tried to start, they shut him down, they hang up, they walk off, they do whatever. And when you're grieving, when you're suffering, that isn't an excuse to not be there for the people you love. That isn't an excuse to cut off their problems too. And especially when you are a parent, when you choose to either give life to somebody or to take the responsibility for raising and being there for the person, like when you have a child, however you acquire the child, as long as it's legal, you have the responsibility to support them and to be there for them. And if they need you, you should be there. Like, you don't know if when you give birth to that kid, they might need your care for the rest of their life, or they might never need you. But like you are there for them always. That is what you have to do. And losing one child should surely make you be more aware of how precious your children are. And it's not even like she has a vibe of she looks at Wilhelm and he reminds her of Eric. She's literally just like, I don't care about him. Now, I don't think that's what she actually feels, but I was really proud of him for standing up to them, for outright saying, like, you make me feel a certain way. You're never there for me. I don't have parents. Like, it just, everything he said, his words were far more eloquent than mine. I was so proud of him. And did he swear at times and get angry and raise his voice? And was it always perfect? No. But there are times when you need to tell your parents tell anybody how they have made you feel, what they have done to hurt you and make you feel small. And I'm so proud of him for doing it. And it breaks my heart that they both just disengaged. Now, his mother, I would still be angry at her for disengaging, but at the very least, she's like going through a severe depressive breakdown right now. So, like, her ability to cope with things is less than it would be normally. The dad obviously is grieving Eric, but he has time and again made it extremely clear that he doesn't value Wilhelm. And it broke my heart to see them both walking away from him, and clearly neither of them even trying to find him afterwards. Like, just outright, you are a child we had to have because we had to have an heir and a spare, and we only cared about one of those children, and now we just care about you because of the position you're in. And it was absolutely heartbreaking to him pour his soul out to them and to have them just not receive it. The mother was the more receptive of the two, and even she just walked off. So it was absolutely heartbreaking to see it. And the idea of being Simon, of sitting there and, you know, everyone's experienced a degree of that moment when, like, you're at someone's house or you're with someone and they're in an argument or something's happening and you're like, I'm not a part of this. Like, I am a best friend, a friend, a partner. Like, I'm not, like, yet enough in this family that I can engage in this. Because, like, if he and Wilhelm, I don't know, if this was taking place in 10 years time and he and Wilhelm had been married for 6 years, okay, maybe they would need to be taking 20, like, they're very young to be married for 6 years, but, you know, if they were married and they were both adults, I feel like someone might have even been able to say, well, no, listen to Wilhelm, he has a point. You know, he kind of would have been able to join in the fight, but as things stand, he's just like, this is so not my place and so uncomfortable, and, like, everything is so hard. And I think it both broke Simon's heart to watch that and made him proud of Wilhelm, but also opened his eyes to just how much pain Wilhelm was actually in, which is something I've been wanting him to see for forever, but not like this. And then, of course, the final nail on the worst birthday in the world coffin is Simon breaking up with him. Now, my sigh was because it breaks my heart. My one thing is that maybe Simon could have held it in for a day or two, you know, just like cuddled Wilhelm that night, and then maybe the next day just not really seen him once they got, oh, I need to see mum when I'm home, and then maybe broken up with him the next day. You know, give him like a little space from his actual birthday in order to break his heart. I know, again, he wasn't doing it to break his heart, ha 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 ha. I'm going to talk about Simon in depth. That is my only vague criticism, but I also think it's something that's been building inside Simon for a very long time. He's 16, so I'm not, again, there's no hate in my heart for any of it. I think he just felt like he needed to be honest, like Wilhelm had been with his parents. And I feel like in some ways seeing the depth of Wilhelm's pain and the depth of how awful and hard the situation is made him realize just how much he wasn't equipped for this right now, and it wasn't what he wanted, and he didn't know how to help, and that maybe as things stand, I really feel like they are right people, wrong time. Their relationship isn't wrong, their dynamic isn't, I mean, dynamic can be wrong at times, but in general it isn't impossible. It is simply, right now, they are too young, in too much pain, and going through too much stuff. A huge part of that is what August did. He made the situation that much more pressured than it didn't need to be. He made it 1,000 times harder. They maybe would have coped without him, but as things stand, I don't think breaking up was the wrong thing in this moment as much as it breaks my heart. I do potentially think doing it on his birthday after he's just had a fight with his parents was a little mean. But I do also think in that spirit of Simon just didn't want to lie, and he probably would view it as, is it worse to hold him and cuddle him and kiss him goodbye and act like everything's fine when you know you're going to break up with him in a couple of days? It's more painful for both, for him in that. I don't know. Like, I don't. What is your opinion? Was he right to break up with him on his birthday? Now, Simon has been going through it this season. Now, in the previous seasons, I've obviously always loved Simon and have supported him, but I've definitely, when he's fought with Wilhelm, been more on the side of just think about what he's going through, please, because in some ways, like, the pressures bearing down on Wilhelm were, I guess, that much kind of, I don't know, Simon never seemed fully aware of them at times, and probably the same can be true the other way. But this season, I feel like Simon was just dropped in the deep end, completely unprepared. He was even unprepared that Wilhelm was going to do it in that moment at the speech, and while he was happy when Wilhelm did it, it was still a whole lot for him to process and cope with. And then just all the awful things that have happened since, the pressure, the basically bullying at school, the isolation, the bullying from the whole world, Wilhelm struggling himself and at times lashing out because that's the only person he can lash out to. I kind of this season Simon has broken my heart 1,001 times. And there have been multiple times in the arguments when I've always been thinking, Wilhelm, see it from his side, slightly more than I was the other way around. And I think when his mother said love shouldn't be this hard, that is such good advice, especially at 16. Like, maybe if you've been married for 15 years, you might have a struggle patch where you have to, like, work on the relationship to get through it. But love at 16, 17 shouldn't be this hard. And I've been feeling that they would probably break up bubbling for some time. And I don't know if whether there is another episode gives me hope that they might end up back together, or whether it will just end with them. I hope at the very least it ends with them being in an okay place with each other and, like, still being in each other's lives, even if they just realize their relationship can't work out, because they're so young. And I would be like, well, maybe they'd find their way together at 25. Who knows? I think Wilhelm in particular needs to do a lot of self-growth and self-healing and figuring out what he actually wants versus what his family wants. He needs to work out whether his parents will ever be there for them or just cut them off, and just, if he has to do it, be like at a royal function, hi parents, bye, I'll go now. Like, if that's what he needs to do to survive, or leave the royal family altogether and say, fuck it, August, you can have it, if that's what he chooses. Like, I think it's truly, he needs to figure out what he wants for himself and how to be happy within himself. And if he does choose to remain on as the monarch, I hope he does things a fucking hell of a lot different. And then Simon, I think this relationship became an anchor, like, that was drowning him. Like, I've been using the metaphor of Wilhelm is drowning for basically since season 1 with the various things that were going on. But it was never Simon that was pulling him down. It was the court, the palace, the expectations that were pulling him down. Whereas in this case, it's not Wilhelm himself that has been dragging Simon down, though he hasn't always been the perfect boyfriend. It's the situation their relationship is in. It is the outside world, but it is the fact that they have a relationship. It is making Simon's life unlivable and hell-like. And they're not even in a happy place themselves. And I don't think I'm explaining this very articulately, but I felt this breakup coming because I think it's the healthiest thing for them both, even though they love each other. And those are the hardest type of breakups, because maybe there is a way for them to work on it and work through it, but right now that neither of their mental health is suffering, and this is just one more thing that is causing stress in both of their lives. I do think it is also the thing that was giving the most light to both of their lives, but sometimes you have to choose to do what's best for you, and even if it hurts, and even if it hurts someone you love. And I don't think I've explained any of that well. I feel like my thoughts are so muddled, and I just want to hug them both and whisk them away from Sweden and the royal court and just let them be themselves and figure themselves out somewhere else. Like, Felice can come, Simon's, like, Sarah and his mum can come. I'm not, like, gonna be completely heartless, but so just that moment broke my heart, and the moment of realization on Wilhelm's face as well, and Simon's when he realized he was actually saying it and doing it. I just, this whole season it's been so clear that their love might not be enough right now, they are so young for this kind of pressure and everything they're going through. And I mean, I'm saying I just hope the finale leaves them happy, whether it's together or not. Obviously, ideally they'll be together, but I just hope it leaves them happy. But I also feel like surely they're going to be happy, whether it's together or not at the end of this episode. I don't know. But it just, they both break my heart. And I mean, Wilhelm is my favorite. I can't lie. But that isn't a downside on Simon. It's just Wilhelm just grabbed my heartstrings quickest. And I just worry about him right now because obviously he's just turned 17, so he's got a lot of official duties now. But he is dealing with Eric and what he actually thinks about him. He's finally unburdened himself to his parents, which could either lead to his parents saying, "We're so sorry we made you feel like this, let's work on things as a family," or it could lead to them just being icy and cold with him and being like, "How dare you, you ungrateful child." He's lost Simon, who was the one thing, like, the big difference in Wilhelm between this season and the last was that he had Simon. He would be drowning 1 minute and then he'd have Simon and everything would feel better, and he's lost that. So I worry about him in the next episode, but I'm hoping ultimately we're going to see him get to a place where he's okay in himself, because I do think it's important that your entire mental health isn't based around another person. You do need to figure out a way to be happy with yourself and your life, and then the other person just enhances something that was already okay, ideally. But yeah, absolutely heartbreaking. I feel no anger towards Simon. I feel a little bit of like, maybe you could have even just waited till the morning. He'd still associate with his birthday, but it wouldn't have been on his birthday. It's the only thing. But he was just being emotionally honest, and I don't think he had it in him to sit there and act like he was wanting to still be in a relationship when he thought for the both of them it should be better that they weren't right now. Absolutely heartbreaking episode. How on earth are they gonna leave things in a nice place in the finale? Because they better leave things in a nice place in the finale. I really feel, I'm so sorry, I feel like my after episode thoughts have been quite like, they're always rambly, but I don't think they're the most coherent, so I'm sorry about that. A reminder that you can find the unedited version of this reaction on my Patreon, and thank you so much for watching.